The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 232.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Bravehearty.
Change, my dear, and it seems on a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Physician healers. Wearing a bit thin.
Fantastic.
I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who, and today we're discussing the 11th Doctor story, The Wedding of River Song. And joining me today on the panel is Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Father Corey couldn't be with us this time, but he'll be back next time. But until then, folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. Retweet us on Twitter and leave us comments there. We love to get your feedback on the show. So we are talking about, I guess it's the penultimate episode of this season of Doctor Who.
Ultimate, if you don't count it's the season finale, but they do have a Christmas episode that comes after. Right,
exactly. That's. I always have a hard time trying to figure out. Sometimes the Christmas episode is in the next season, sometimes in this season. But yeah, let's call it the final episode of this particular season of Doctor Who, The Wedding of River Song. It's the climactic moment of this whole the Silence season, or Lake Silencio story arc, you could almost say, because there's still more to come, but we'll get to that. But Jimmy, could you recap for us quickly what happens in this episode?
Sure. So we start the episode with Stephen Moffat doing his Stephen Moffat-iest science fantasy shtick. Something has happened to time. It's become frozen at 5:02 p.m. on the day the Doctor dies, and it's collapsed in a way that we're told all of history is happening at once. So we have a park in London with "Please don't feed the pterodactyls" signs, and when the people try to feed the pterodactyls, it goes wrong. We have the Holy Roman Emperor Winston Churchill returning on his we don't see this, but we're told in a broadcast he's returning on his personal mammoth to the Senate, and we see this, mashup of all this different imagery from history. Strangely, despite the fact that all of time has collapsed into 5:02 p.m., nothing from the future appears to have collapsed into 5:02 p.m. So that's a little anachronistic. We then, through a series of flashbacks, as Winston Churchill starts talking to the Doctor in this crazy kaleidoscope moment, we start learning what happened and to bring things to this state. And basically, we revisit the events from the beginning of the season at Lake Silencio, where you've got Amy, Rory, the Doctor, River, and Canton Delaware, if I recall his name correctly, all together on the beach. And the astronaut suit comes out of the lake and shoots the Doctor. And this time it's revealed that River is in the suit. It's a younger version of River. And so you've got two Rivers here. I like the Doctor says River came twice. But she shoots the Doctor. Instead of shooting the Doctor this time, she discharges her weapons system and doesn't shoot him. And this is a problem because it's a fixed moment in time, and she just changed it. And so all of time... We have a huge paradox. All of time has collapsed, and we go into another sequence where Amy and Rory, who don't really know each other, come and kidnap the Doctor and take him to Area 52, which is a U.S. facility inside the Great Pyramid, where the Silence are housed, and Madame Kovarian is there, and the Silence attack, and they go up on the roof of the pyramid. River reveals that she knows the Doctor has to die, but she couldn't let him die without knowing that he's loved, and so she sent a message to all of the universe outside of the collapsing time bubble they're in, and everyone is sending in messages saying, "We love you, and of course we'll help," and things like that, even though they can't. And this convinces the Doctor that River loves him enough that he'll marry her. So he marries her. And then they kiss, and since they're the two individuals at the focus of the the time paradox, their kissing allows the universe to reset, and through a bit of prestidigitation, the Doctor ends up not dead after all, because it isn't actually the Doctor there on the beach. It's the Doctor inside the Tesselecta robotic, shape-shifting giant facility that can look like a human being and has been set to look like the Doctor.
Right.
So it's always been River in the astronaut suit killing the Tesselecta, which is a Doctor suit containing the Doctor.
Yeah. Later on, we'll talk about how the Doctor managed to get the Tesselecta to do the Artron energy thing that got interrupted. The interrupted regeneration that killed him. But we could we'll talk about that as we go through. So it's April 22nd, 2011, 5:02 p.m. London time. That's the Doctor's death date and time. That's what they've established. And like you said, it's
that means they're drinking wine in the mid-morning Utah time.
No kidding. That's it's early. Hey, why not? It's a picnic with the Doctor.
And if you're about to die,
Yeah. There was some interesting bits that they kind of smashed together into this opening montage of the strange mashed together time mash world that they're in. You have steam locomotives on elevated tracks going through the Shard, which is a building in London.
Oh, I know it as the Pickle. That's another name for it.
Oh, okay. It does kind of look like a pickle. And you have hot air balloons carrying cars around for some reason, Roman chariots. You have Charles Dickens on TV, which is interesting, played by Simon Callow, who is the guy who played Charles Dickens in the Ninth Doctor story, The Unquiet Dead, on a BBC morning show, discussing this year's Christmas episode, which features ghosts, the past, the present, and the future, all at the same time, which I thought was an interesting little bit of
that's a nice nod.
Meta. Yeah. It's kind of meta. Yeah. So when they're with Churchill at the beginning, the Holy Roman Emperor Churchill, and he calls in the soothsayer. He only calls him the soothsayer at first, from the Tower of London, he threw him in the Tower of London before. The Doctor comes in, and it's clearly he's dressed like Jesus. He's got the robes and the long beard thing.
I never saw that.
It really felt like
the beard isn't long enough to me, but not for my image of Jesus anyway.
Right. But it felt very much like Christ being called before Pilate in the whole what is truth sort of thing. It's instead of Pilate, it's the Emperor. Instead of Jesus, it's the Doctor. I really felt like that was something that they were intentionally doing there by that costume, especially. I thought it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I guess mileage will vary on this. I didn't perceive any of that. I saw the Doctor as dressed as a soothsayer who's been in confinement for a long time, which is why he's got the long hair and the beard.
Yeah,
just like he did when they confined him at Area 51. And he's wearing Roman period attire, and it's the Doctor and Winston Churchill.
Yeah, although Churchill is wearing
he's wearing his Roman toga. Yeah.
Well, no, Churchill wasn't he wearing the 20th century clothes?
Oh, was he? I thought he had a toga at one point. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah. Well, that was, I think, the thing that kind of threw me was not everyone was wearing the Roman attire. So I could be off on that, but I thought it was interesting because it would bring up interesting questions of, the whole Pilate asking what is truth. And Churchill, in this story, is trying to get at the truth, trying to get at what is really going on. He knows something is not right. He knows that time should not be stopped at a particular moment. That comes up in his discussion with a Dr. Malachi, which the doctor we had seen,
he's a Silurian.
Silurian, thank you. That was the word escaped me for a minute. Doctor. So I thought that was interesting. And then we have this flashback from there to the Doctor trying to figure out why he has to die. And he's traveling through time and space before the Lake Silencio moment to figure out why is it I am to die at this moment. And so he goes through a Dalek that has been destroyed, nearly destroyed.
He's getting information out of the Dalek mainframe. Then he goes to the Tesselecta people to ask them why he has to die. Mm-hmm. He's trying to track down the Silence to find out from them. And we then see him playing something called live chess, where the electrical charge in the chess pieces increases and
as you play.
as you play, and he's just got a guy he's going to electrocute who is part of the silence if he doesn't forfeit the game. And so he deals with the guy. This is apparently a popular sport at some point in history, and so you've got cheering fans watching the live chess match. And the creepy guy, whose name is Gantok, by the way. Gantok agrees to take him to where he can learn why he has to die if he'll forfeit the game so he doesn't have to be electrocuted. And so he does. Right. And he then takes him to the vaults of the headless monks, where they've got all the heads, most of which are just skulls, although they're still animate somehow.
Yeah.
And he tells them there are no rats in these vaults because the heads eat them.
It's not creepy at all.
Yeah. But Dorium is there. Dorium Maldivar, who was at Demon's Run and got beheaded, is there, and he is in a box because he's rich and has good Wi-Fi. and he tells the doctor this prophecy about on the fields of Trenzalore at the fall of the 11th, when no soul could fail to answer or answer falsely, the question will be asked, which he says should be translated, the question must, or when the question is asked, silence must fall.
Right.
And he knows what the question is, and it's not revealed to us until the end of the episode, but he tells the doctor, and then says, now you understand why you have to die.
Right. It's the oldest question in the universe hidden in plain sight, is what they said.
And it's going to be Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question you've been running from your whole life. And all that is clever and fine.
Right.
Gantok then falls into a pit and gets eaten by skulls, which is really science fairy tale.
Yeah, because the doctor still doesn't believe him, but the thing that finally convinces him is he calls it a nursing home, or I'm not sure what they call it in Britain, but what we would call it a nursing
care
home.
Facility of some kind.
Yeah. He's trying to get a hold of the brigadier, and we are told by a nurse, "I'm so sorry we didn't know how to contact you. I'm afraid Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart passed away." And this was a tribute to Nicholas Courtney, who had played the brigadier, who had died the previous February before this. And this moment is what convinces the doctor that it's time, for him to go to Lake Silencio and to face his fate. I thought that was a nice tribute to Nicholas Courtney there.
It was. It also, it kind of fails a little bit on the logic level, because at this moment, even though, so the doctor has brought Dorium's head in its box on board the TARDIS, and he is at this moment not prepared to go, because his idea is, I've got a time machine. For me, the party's still going. I can do all these different things. Even if I have to die, I don't have to die now. I can do a Clara Oswald.
Right.
and that's absolutely true. And that's part of why in Closing Time, the previous episode, I was down on what's it with all this doctor has to die now stuff.
Right.
They're just going to redo it. And this is where they redo it, because he makes the call to talk to the brigadier. They say the brigadier's dead. Touchingly, apparently, he had the staff pour 2 brandies every night, one for him and one for the doctor in case the doctor ever showed up, which is sort of like leaving an extra plate for Elijah at Passover, I guess.
Right.
But the doctor's point is still valid here. He's got a time machine. Okay, you called after the brigadier's death. Call 6 months earlier then.
Right.
You can go party with the brigadier if you want. That's not the issue. You can take him up on all of those brandies. So, it doesn't work on the logic level. I think the best I can do with it mentally is, even though logically he doesn't have to die here, it's enough of an emotional gut punch. Although, why, if you're a time traveler, should this be an emotional gut punch?
And it's essentially a mortal time traveler.
Yeah. But it's enough of a gut punch to get him to accept his own mortality and stop running from it, even though he could.
Right. It's this weird. Yeah. It sucks a little of the drama out of it. I mean, even then at the time we knew the doctor doesn't actually die. The doctor gets out of it somehow. The show is going to go on. So that's a little of the drama sucked out of it. But even here, it's like, yeah, but he's the Doctor's not going to die. Like, he just doesn't have to die. And I felt like, I remember when I watched this the first time, I just didn't feel like the stakes didn't feel high enough. It was just a matter of waiting to see the clever way that he gets out of it. And it wasn't like, it's like when Kirk goes down to the planet and he's going to be killed by an alien. It's like, well, of course Kirk doesn't die, or any lead character in a series, because
not
the
until
series
Malcolm
is
McDowell gets there.
right, exactly. Which that was a weird. That also was a weird thing. That we'll talk about that in Series of Star Trek when we get to Generations, because I want to talk about that. But it feels a little. It ended up being just following Moffat's cleverness. How did he cleverly write this episode? So it didn't have that drama gut punch that, say, the regeneration of the 10th Doctor had, because we knew that was the end for David Tennant on Doctor Who, and I think that's the big difference. Is
not
it doesn't
only
have that.
Not only did we know that's the end for David Tennant, but also it happened in a way, even though they could have written it better than they did. The fact he sacrifices his life to save someone we care about, Wilfred Mott, ups the stakes. Now, they tarnished it in the way they did it, but it did feel more impactful there.
Right. I remember how that felt. And if I have a criticism of Moffat, and there are things to criticize, he's always pulls back. He always, at the last second, he doesn't let Clara die. He doesn't let the 11th Doctor die. And it's nobody dies. And therefore, there's not that dramatic punch that you could get. If there's no, it takes away the stakes. If you just, people don't die. And that feels like a loss. Even, again, with Lethbridge Stewart, he's going to undo that later on in the 12th Doctor's time, where he's got Lethbridge Stewart shows up as a Cyberman to save him.
That they said that's what happened, but that's a desecration.
Right.
That's not a fixing it or pulling it back. That's a mistake.
Yes, it is. But it kind of undermines the good that you've done before with your writing. And there was always a strange tick that I think that Moffat shows in Doctor Who. I'm not sure why. I would love to see if there was an interview with him about this. I'd love to ask him why he does this over and over.
Especially because in Silence in the Library, he makes a point about how without a death, everything is just a comedy, that you need death to give, in dramatic terms, to give a life scope and meaning. And although even then he sort of walks it back with having River Song live on as a data ghost.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that in fact, that might have been the best thing he did, was having the River and the Doctor moving in opposite directions in time. I love that idea, because it does create this melancholic encounter between them all the time. And we'll see actually some of that later on this episode near the end, was in this idea that they're traveling in opposite directions, and we know where River is going. We've already seen it. And that's a very interesting science fiction-y sort of a dramatic tension. And I like that. So
one thing I wanted to comment on is the nature of the question. Yeah. And its relevance to the Doctor's name, because they have a scene with the Doctor and Winston Churchill where they're talking about this issue, and Winston is essentially asking, why this is so secret. And I forget the exact dialogue they used to get us there, but the Doctor comments on what if there was a man who knew some terrible secret that could never be uttered, and it would be really horrible if it was uttered. It would have world-shaking consequences. What would you do in order to avoid that information getting out? And Winston says, well, if I had to, I'd kill the man. And so that's the logic. The Doctor knows this terrible secret that somehow answers the question, Doctor Who? And the suggestion is it's his name. And they'll even play with that more next season as they build up to the name of the Doctor and the revelation of the War Doctor. Ultimately, though, this is one of those jangly bits where it's a little hard to see in hindsight what the logic is here.
Right.
Because how they're going to pay this off is in the time of the Doctor, where Matt Smith regenerates into Peter Capaldi. And in that situation, okay, he's on Trenzalore. There's a crack in time. The Time Lords are on the other side of the crack. They're in a pocket universe. And they're trying to find, is this the place we can come out? Is this the right reality, I guess? And so they're asking the Doctor's name, Doctor Who, what's his name? And they are, that's the question. The answer would be Doctor and then whatever his name is. And they've set up a truth field so he can't answer. So he can't answer falsely.
Mm-hmm.
And they are poised to come back if he answers. And he refuses to answer for centuries and centuries and centuries because he and other people are afraid, even though they've been redeemed, sort of, that if they come through now, the Time War will restart because there's a massive army, including the Daleks, to oppose them. And so to avoid subjecting the universe to a second Time War, he doesn't give them his name. And ultimately, Clara, who doesn't at this point know his name, although she did at one point, but she doesn't now, she goes, "You silly Time Lords, his name is the Doctor. That's all the name he's ever needed." And that convinces them somehow. And they then close the time crack, open a new one, give the Doctor new regeneration energy, close the time crack so they don't come through and the war doesn't restart. And that's how they resolve that. So I'm thinking here, how much of all this why would the Doctor interpret this as a secret that must never be told? How does he know the question Doctor Who is going to be the key? I can understand that if he knew the Time War would restart based on his answering his name, that he would not want to reveal his name and understand his death to prevent a future Time War. But it doesn't seem like he knows all of that stuff at this point. So it still doesn't make sense to me on the logical level. It feels like Stephen Moffat is making it up.
Yeah, it feels like he's making up as he goes along. Well, and then the ultimate question is why is the Doctor's name so secret? Why don't we know the Doctor's name?
Yeah, and this could be just a meta thing on Stephen Moffat's part that we can't know the Doctor's name because it's the premise of the series. He's Doctor Who. He's this mysterious guy, and that's fine. But they haven't set it up so that the name itself is a problem. It's only in the context of restarting the Time War that the name is a problem, because other people have learned the Doctor's name. Clara learned it briefly before a mind wipe, and River knows it. So his name can be told to people without bringing on universal doom.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It feel like it's more of a personal quirk, at least up to this point, than a world, universe shaking potential problem that his name is this mantra, this spell that could change everything. And I think by approaching it, Moffat, by approaching this series fact that you can't say the Doctor's name, but approaching it the way he did, he's created a problem with it. Mm-hmm. And so I agree. Yeah, that is, it does feel a bit like he's making things up as he goes along, and that he at this point in where we're talking about the Wedding River song, it feels like he didn't know what he was going to do in the time of the Doctor. That wasn't set yet. So, it feels like that.
On the other hand, there are some clever things in this. The idea of using the Tesselecta to save the Doctor, that was nice.
Did not see that coming.
Also, we have an explanation for why people like Madame Kavarian are wearing these eye patches.
Mm-hmm.
They're not actually eye patches. They're eye drives that activate the memory centers of your brain so that you can remember the silence when you're not looking at them.
Right.
And that's a clever idea.
Yeah. I like that the Great Pyramids in Cairo are America's Area 52. They have a big American flag painted on them.
Yeah, this is one
weird.
that mileage can vary. I thought it was a little I'm not a fan of when Stephen Moffat gets science fairy tale.
Yeah,
and this is really science fairy tale.
Yeah, it is. I say I like it as in that was weird and made me laugh out loud when I saw it. So
yeah, I recognize the cleverness of the image, and that's why it's there to have a clever image.
A little bit of cleverness was when Amy comes in to rescue the Doctor. Churchill and the Doctor are up against the whole batch of the Silence in Churchill's palace. And Amy and Rory show up, and Amy comes in. She's got the eye patch on. She's all in black, and she says, "Pond, Amelia Pond," which was a very James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
Like, of course, you had to do the Pond Bond. Yeah, that was really good.
Also, because she's wearing an eye patch at this moment, and she's dressed sinisterly in black, the Doctor thinks she's like gone over to the Silence.
Right. Until we get the explanation later on the train as they're heading over to Cairo. That's a very fast steam train, by the way. Steam locomotive goes very fast. One of the things that happens here is, so they've got Madame Kovarian tied up. They've got her in the pyramid, and they're questioning her. And as the Silence break out of their containment and start attacking the resistance, or whatever you want to call them, they're all running for the roof of the pyramid to do things. And Amy comes back. The Silence anyone who's wearing the eye patch, it turns out the Silence can execute them or can cause intense pain or kill them, sending electricity through it.
And we're told it varies from person to person. Some people will die, other people will just be in excruciating agony.
Yes. And as Amy is running out, Madame Kovarian is kind of trying to convince her to turn her, to get her, taunting her, these things. Amy comes back, and basically she kills Madame Kovarian in cold blood.
She does. Madame Kovarian, her eye patch has kind of come off a little bit. It's still partially attached to her face, but she's not being shocked to death by it. And she's doing this, "You're going to save me," and she's actually very pitiful at this moment. But she also is very slimy and at this moment, because in arguing to Amy that Amy needs to save her, she's not just arguing that Amy needs to save her because it's what the Doctor would do. She's asserting that Amy will save her because it's what the Doctor would do. And she does it in this way that, even though she's acting in a manner that evokes pity and is pitiful in the literal sense, she also is overconfident and acting a little superior, as you're going to do this because it's what the Doctor would do. And of course that's absolutely the wrong thing. If you're about to die and you need to be saved, and you're appealing to the better angels of your potential savior's nature, you say, "Please save me. It's what the Doctor would do." You don't say, "You're going to save me because it's what the Doctor would do." Yes. And of course, Amy then reattaches the eyepiece and says, "Guess what? He's not here." And reattaches the eyepiece, and she dies.
Yeah, because she says that's because you took my baby from me and hurt her, and now she's all grown up and she's fine, but I'll never see my baby again. I mean, that's a mother's anger and vengeance.
Yeah, except time machine.
Right. That time machine is
Marty. You're not thinking four-dimensionally.
Right. Also, Rory gets to be heroic superhero Rory again. He's Captain Williams. They don't know that they're married in this timeline, or they don't really know each other in that relationship in this timeline. But Rory is he's got the eye patch. He's like, "Why isn't it affecting you?" He's like, "It is, ma'am." And he's, you'd see him gripping his fist as he's enduring the pain.
He's being heroic. He's one of the people that it only causes agony to, apparently.
Right.
So in this version, they're not married at this point, but Amy has these repressed memories of Rory that are kind of peeking through, but kind of not, and the Doctor's trying to move their relationship along. She can't recognize Rory, even though he's right in front of her. She just knows him as Captain William. She's never bothered to learn his first name, which is implausible. But then this whole scenario is implausible.
Sure.
So the Doctor goes to Rory and says, "You should ask your boss out. She likes you. She told you that you're a Mr. Hottiness, and you should invite her out for texting and scones. And Rory is like, this is the first time you've ever done this, right?
Yeah. And yes.
But then after Rory's sort of self-sacrifice to save her, and the Silence pointed out as they come in during their attack, they're Rory Williams, the man who dies again and again, die one last time. And so they're about to kill him, but then Amy shows up and saves him because she's now recognized who he is, and she's like, we need to go out for drinks and get married. And he's like, okay.
Just being Rory,
Yeah.
which is that he does whatever Amy says. So speaking of getting married, so when they get to the roof, why does the Doctor marry River Song? I've seen this episode half a dozen times now. I'm still not sure why this was necessary.
You have to watch it really carefully because it goes by so fast. Moffat should have camped out on this a little bit more. The thing is, so time is disintegrating if they don't get the universe moving again. Even though time has only collapsed on Earth, it's going to disintegrate everywhere if they don't get the universe moving again. And so River has sent these help messages to everyone in the universe who the Doctor has affected, and they're pouring in good wishes. The Doctor says, yeah, but they can't help. And River says, I know, but I couldn't let you die without knowing that you're loved. And so the plan by contacting them has not been to actually save the Doctor. It's been to let him know that he's loved before he has to die. And he then says, because River doesn't know he's in the Tesselecta. And then the Doctor starts to question River about, her feelings for him. And she indicates that when he dies, she will mourn him more than all of the other creatures in reality put together. She loves him more than everyone else. And that's what convinces him to marry her, is that he now knows she loves him more than anyone else, so he's willing to marry her. And so they then do a ritual that is actually a real ritual from human history. It's called hand fasting, where you attach two people's hands together, frequently by a strip of cloth, which the Doctor uses his bow tie for, because bow ties are cool.
There.
And having bound the hands fast together, this could symbolize, in the Middle Ages, either an engagement or a marriage. There were actually two occasions on which it could be done. And here it's a marriage, and the Doctor gets consent from both Amy and Rory. There are some irregularities about how this is done, but fundamentally this would end up being valid, because by the end of the ceremony, everybody agrees to and nobody dissents from this being a valid marriage.
From the parents of the bride, yes.
From the parents of the bride, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Doctor leans forward and tells River, I'm going to say something to you and you must never repeat it to anybody. And he tells her, after he does it, he says, that was my name.
Right.
And this makes perfect sense in the light of what we saw in Silence at the Library and Forest of the Dead, where River reveals the Doctor that she knows the Doctor's name, and the Doctor says, that's impossible. There's only one circumstance where I could reveal my name to anybody, and it makes sense that would be like his wedding, where he might have to say his name as part of the ritual.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is a Stephen Moffat fake out. All the Doctor really said was, look in my eye. And when River does, she sees the actual Doctor there inside the Tesselecta, which she knows about from prior knowledge because she was there in Berlin when Melody Pond regenerated into River Song and the Tesselecta was there.
Yes.
So it is more illogic about why the playing with the name thing. I mean, I don't mind playing with the name, but this feels like cheating.
So at some point then he does tell her his name, right?
Yeah, but all she says in hindsight when someone asks her is, it took a while.
maybe Beryllium, the long night, at the last episode, River's last episode with the 12th Doctor,
except
at the Towers
that
of Beryllium.
I mean, maybe that's possible. That's possible, but it could have been other times too.
Yeah, it could have been. So
they kiss and everything undoes, and the reset button is smashed down upon in a big way, and everything goes back to normal.
And then we have we're not done yet, because we have Amy sitting in her back garden of her house with Rory. She's sitting there alone, and River shows up,
or as we would say in America, her back lawn.
Her backyard lawn or backyard.
Yeah.
But I was trying to be.
Oh yeah. No, it's natural. It's natural on this show. I'm just pointing out those two words mean the same thing. A lawn is a garden. Yeah,
that's right.
In America, a garden is a little different. It'll be like a flower garden or a vegetable garden.
That's right. So River shows up, and she informs Amy that in her timeline, she just came from the Byzantium, which was the first time Amy met River. And she says to Amy, "How are you doing?" And Amy responds, "The doctor's dead." That's all that matters right now, is that the doctor's dead, and she remembers killing Madame Kovarian in cold blood, and that is also something that continues to bother her conscience.
Yeah. So in this discussion, River talks about how she has to lie all the time as a time traveler. She has to hide her knowledge of things, and that she's been doing this consistently down through her appearances.
Right.
And that's reasonable. She tries to make Amy feel better by pointing out that Amy only killed Madame Kovarian in an aborted timeline that no longer exists.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, speaking from the perspective of moral theology, that excuse does not work.
Right.
Because even if that timeline no longer exists, you were there and you did that. So that was, Amy did commit murder. And
her conscience is rightly pricking her, saying, yes, that her conscience is doing its job.
Yeah.
And she needs to seek forgiveness for that.
But Amy is still sad and because of the doctor's death. And so River says what everyone in the audience knows. Of course he's not.
Yes.
And Amy is initially thinking, for once, like four-dimensionally, River has a time machine. He's not dead for you. And River reveals, no, he's not dead, period.
Right.
And so...
Because rule number one.
Yeah.
the doctor
lies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we get, I forget if it's at this point or in the next scene, we get the reveal with the Tesselecta.
Yeah, I think
it's in one of the two, but we end the scene with Amy, Rory, and River rejoicing in the knowledge the doctor is not dead. And then
this has one of my best moments, by the way. This scene, the end of this, is are you sure, River? Are you really properly sure? Of course I'm sure. I'm his wife. Yes, says Amy, and I'm his mother-in-law. Like the realization finally that she's the doctor's mother-in-law. I think I love that moment when I first saw it. That was a good one.
And in subjective time, it's only been a few minutes, so
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's the next scene when the doctor shows up back at the Headless Monk's basement. Vault. That he reveals...
That's an American usage we should bring in. So we have basements. We should start calling them our vaults.
Yeah, so I wish I had a vault. I don't even have a basement.
Children,
but that would
go down into the vault and get the sack of potatoes.
Oh man, I wish I could do that. So yeah, he goes back to the Headless Monk's storage room, and where Dorium is, and he tells Dorium that he was in the Tesselecta. We get a flashback to when the doctor had encountered the Tesselecta earlier in the episode, and they're like, anything we could do for you, doctor, let us know. And he walks out. Well, then he comes back. We see the scene again where he comes back and says, there's one thing.
Yeah.
And then we get this moment where the doctor says, I got too big, too noisy, and that's why everyone wanted to kill him. He was too much of a presence.
And he's going to step back into the shadows now. And this actually is good. This is good thinking on Stephen Moffat's part, because it pays off a theme that has been they've been dealing with ever since Silence in the Library. Because the solution at Silence in the Library is for the Doctor to turn to the Vashta Nerada and say, we're in the biggest library in the world, look me up. And that causes the Vashta Nerada to retreat. And it's the first time the Doctor plays on his godlike reputation in that decisive a way, but it keeps happening. You look at the end of the first Matt Smith season with the Pandorica Opens, and you have this alliance of alien races that are all terrified of the Doctor, and he's just at Stonehenge spouting this arrogant speech, and then it turns out they're here to save the universe from him. Yeah. And the whole Doctor arrogance, I'm virtually a god thing has been going on for an incarnation and a half. Or more. I mean, really, all through New Who, there's been elements of this, all the way back to Christopher Eccleston. And it has become increasingly problematic because if the solution keeps being look me up, that sucks the drama out of the series. So it's actually good for Stephen Moffat to say, hey, let's go back to what it was like in Tom Baker's day or Patrick Troughton's day, or where not everybody in space immediately knew who the Doctor was.
Right. I was thinking of Time Lord Victorious and Water of Mars and other things like that. Yeah. I mean, even all the way back to Rose, the very first New Who episode where the Ninth Doctor, Rose tracks him down by looking him up, seeing him through history and that sort of stuff. Yeah. That of anything in this episode, it was that idea of making the Doctor small again, bringing him back again to the Doctor can travel and do things without everyone bowing before him and his godlike reputation. So I did like that. So anything, and of course we end with Dorian giving him the question, the first question, the question that must never be answered, the Doctor Who, and then he repeats it over and over again at this point, and that sort of thing. So that's what that is. So
what did you think of this as a closer to? It doesn't close off either the River Song or the Silence arcs, but it does give us some closure on both of them. I mean, it's a closure for the series of the Silence tries to kill the Doctor arc,
right?
And it's the series finale, and then it also gets us to finally the Doctor and River are married. So, what did you think of this episode in accomplishing those functions?
I kind of feel like this should have been a regeneration episode. Because when we get back to the fields of Trenzalore later, and the name of the Doctor and all of that, we're back here again. The Alliance, the Silence, everything that's at stake, and it feels like this all gets undone by then again, and that felt kind of odd. I almost feel like I wanted two separate things. I wanted Amy and Rory and River and the wedding with River Song and that sort of stuff, and all of this other, the Silence and the Doctor's gotten too big and all of that to be something different. Because one way for the Doctor to get small again is for him to have a new face and a new incarnation and to be unknown again, which is what they eventually do with Capaldi. And because I think he tried to pack so much into this episode. So many different elements, and that's one of the reasons why I felt like the first couple of times I watched this, I got a little lost in it.
It is very easy to get lost in this, and he spends so much time with the fairy tale stuff, just cramming images and concepts into the script that it distracts from the principal action. Yeah, I like the fact River is now. I mean, I like the fact we finally got to they're married. We can stop. Yeah. We can stop the will they, won't they stuff and can move forward on what was obvious from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like the setup for the season arc with the Silence more than I like the payoff.
Yeah.
So I like the impossible astronaut and whatever the second one, Day of the Moon, was. I like that more than this. I don't hate this one. I just think it's flawed. It's still enjoyable to me, but I see the flaws in it pretty prominently. And unfortunately, since it's a season arc, we now have the prospect of the Christmas episode, which is the worst.
The worst.
And then next season is not on the level of this season in terms of writing.
Right.
And one of the things that I really didn't like about next season is there is so little River in it. Because now that they're married, I want to see them married. I want to see them going on adventures together. That was always the promise of the Doctor and River, is she's the companion of the future. Let's see them being companions now that they're finally married. But Moffat decided he would only bring in Alex Kingston for like special episodes rather than take the mystery out of her. And so we only actually get River twice next season.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Big Finish exists, and Big Finish has been exploring River and her relationship with the Doctor in multiple ways, as well as on her own. There's a whole adventures. It's called The Diary of River Song, and there's a whole series of audio plays that fall under that range. Many of them are just River on her own, but my favorites are where River is with the Doctor. My all-time favorite one, I forget the number, but if you go to bigfinish.com, you can easily find it. It's the set where River and Peter Davison's Doctor are together. In the first play in that series, River encounters some disturbing stuff, and she's so disturbed by it, she needs the Doctor just to be with him, any one of him, just to help her be comforted. And she happens to pick Peter Davison's Doctor, and there's some brilliant stuff in there. In particular, there is one of the plays is based on My Dinner with Andre, and so it's River and Peter Davison's Doctor sort of having a dinner together at this fancy French space restaurant and space time restaurant, and it's divided up by like the courses of a meal.
Right.
And it's brilliant. I just love that one in particular. Also, very recently, one of the most recent ones is called the 10th Doctor and River Song. And it's a set of like 3 audio plays, if I recall correctly. I've listened to the first one so far, and it's what's fascinating about this is the 10th Doctor knows who she is.
Yes.
So like Peter Davison can't, at least at the end of it, he can't know who she is. And through much of it, he can't know who she is. He can get little flashes maybe, but that's about it. But the 10th Doctor can know who she is because he's met her at the library. And so you have a different dynamic with him where he's in this, I know you're this person from my future and you know more about me than I know about you, and I don't like that. And why are you being so flirty and so forth? So you have a different dynamic. And the first play in the 10th Doctor and River Song is a literary play in the sense of it's like a literary novel that's told through the form of letters. So you have the Doctor and River Song writing letters on psychic paper to each other. And so you hear their voices and you hear what's going on in the background as they're writing their letters and things like that. And it is this interesting romantic correspondence.
Interesting. Yeah, that was, you kind of answered something I was going to ask. It's like, how does the fact that the 10th Doctor is the first one to remember her, so how does she meet older Doctors and then have him not remember her? So they must have memory of things.
Yeah, they have a variety of different ways of doing it. Sometimes, I think when they first did it, it's like she was on the other end of a radio connection and he never saw her. They have others where they meet briefly, but they don't. She keeps the secret from him. And also, she has psychic lipstick. So give him a kiss. He got the Superman Lois Lane memory effect, and he won't remember.
Right. All right. So we've got stuff to look forward to going into next season. There's some good episodes.
Yeah, there's some.
And then we'll meet Clara Oswald for the first time.
Not enough.
There's not enough.
Richard Nixon did good things too.
Oh, we're getting, just brace yourselves, folks. Dinosaurs on a spaceship, the town called Mercy. That's all coming. The Statue of Liberty as a weeping angel. Oh, it's all coming. So brace yourselves. All right, so let's wrap things up there. We want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Gabe S., James S., Brooke K., Joel L., and Pamela F. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What do you think of The Wedding of River Song and this whole series, this whole season? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the third Doctor story, The Demons. The Demons? The Demons? I never know how to pronounce that.
It's got a diphthong in there.
Yeah, I know, the diphthong really throws me. Until then, Jimmy Aiken, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Dom. 5 rounds rapid.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, you are forgiven. Always and completely forgiven.
Right. This is going to be fun.